And welcome back to this second lecture video covering flexible budgeting. So we were working on this problem right over here, what we were doing was to convert our budget at 20,000 units into our budget at 21,000 units, which is our actual level of production, so that we can compare the two. So we did this earlier, and I started to work on this, and so let's finish this one, and then why don't you go ahead and pause the lecture video and see if you can't figure out the rest on your own. So we had our 210 right over here for our materials. And the way we got that again is taking our 200,000 divided by the 20,000 and multiplying that times 21,000. That gives us our 210. Okay? The actual we pulled from right here, 231. And so what that gives us is 21,000. Now, is this favorable or unfavorable? Well, our actual expenses are higher than our budgeted expenses. That's unfavorable. When actual sales are more than budgeted sales, that's favorable. But if expenses are higher, that's unfavorable. So what I want you to do now is to pause the lecture video and then finish the rest of this problem, and then we're going to go ahead and check it, okay? Okay, so hello and welcome back, and I hope you were able to get the right answer right over here. So this is where we left off. And then what we have is our direct labor. How did I get the 168? I came over here and I took my 160 divided by my 30,000, multiplied that result times 21,000. That gives me 168. Then my actual direct labor of 168 right over here. They're the same number, so there's no variance. With my variable overhead, take my 60,000. Divided by my 20,000, multiply that times 21,000. That gives me my variable overhead of 63. And then I pulled in my actual of 73,500. Subtract the two. You can see that actual is higher than budget in terms of expenses, so that's 10,500 unfavorable. And then the next thing I need to do, and I'm following my contribution margin format right over here. Okay? I'm following the contribution margin format to solve this problem. So the next one that I have is my variable operating expenses. So if I look at my 40,000 divided by my 20,000, that gives me my variable operating expenses per unit, multiplied times 21,000. That gives me 42,000 right over here. I pull in my actual, 39,500. Budget, or actual, is less than budget by $2,500. That's favorable because actual expenses are less than budgeted expenses by $2,500, and that would be favorable. Then what I can do to get the contribution margin is I can take my sales less all my variable expenses. That gives me my budgeted contribution margin. And then I take my actual sales less all my variable expenses. That gives me my actual contribution margin. My budgeted is higher than actual. So my actual contribution margin, remember contribution margin, you can think of that as profit before you subtract out your variable expenses. That's lower than what we thought by $8,000. That's unfavorable. Now let's look at our fixed expenses. So we have our fixed overhead of $80,000, which is at 20,000 units. What would we expect fixed overhead to be at 21,000 units? Well, we would expect it to be the same, because it's a fixed cost. Same thing with fixed operating expenses. So I have my 80,000 right over here, which is what I expect to be. The budget at 21,000, the same, 12,000 for operating, and then I pull in my 77,500 actual fixed overhead, my 12,000 actual operating expenses. Subtract the two right over here. There is no difference here, but here there's $2,500. And it's favorable because actual expenses, actual fixed overhead, turned out to be less than budgeted fixed overhead by $2,500. Then we can take our contribution margin, subtract out our fixed expenses. That gives us our income from operations right over here. We say our budgeted 55,000, but we actually only made 49,500. We should have made, another way to look at this is we should have made $55,000 at 21,000 units. We only made 49,500 at 21,000 units. $5,500 is the difference, and it's unfavorable. This is a better way to look at it than what we have over here. Because over here, this appears to be a favorable variance in terms of profit, right? 49,500 at 21,000 units. And we say, oh, 49,500. We were supposed to make 48,000. We have a favorable variance in terms of profit by $1,500. Hold on. That was at 20,000 units. So you actually did 21,000 units, and that's why your profit was higher. So if we take out that $1,000 difference in volume and we redo the budget at 21,000 units, we see that the manager didn't do as well as they claim to be doing. Okay? So this is a flexible budget. This is a fixed budget. And you can see the problems here with the fixed budget. The flexible budget is a much better way to do it because we can compare apples to apples. Same volume. Okay? All right. So let's look at another problem right over here. And this one says sales price. Product has a sales price of $20 based upon a 15,000 unit production level. The variable costs are $12 a unit, and the fixed costs are $6 per unit. Using a flexible budget for an actual production and sales level of 18,000 units, what is the budgeted operating income? So we come over here, so we're going to redo this at 18,000 units. That's what we're going to do. We're going to say our sales, and so we know our sales price is $20. This is our sales volume. So what we can do is multiply 18,000 times the 20. That gives us our $360,000. Then we can come over here and look at our variable costs. Our variable costs are $12 at 15,000 units. What will variable costs be at 18,000 units? They'll be the same, right? Still be $12. So I can multiply 12 times the 18, variable cost of $216, subtract the 2, that gives me my contribution margin of $144. Now, it doesn't say in this problem's kind of tricky because it doesn't tell you what total fixed costs are. But we can figure it out because we can say fixed costs are $6 per unit based upon our 15,000 units. So what I can do is I can multiply my 15,000 units times my $6 per unit, 15,000 times my 6, which gives me $90,000, which is my total fixed expenses. Those are my total fixed costs, right? Because this is just saying the same thing as you bought 10 t-shirts at Walmart. You paid $10 each for each t-shirt. How much total did you pay? The number of t-shirts times the cost per t-shirt gives you the total, $90,000. So my fixed expenses, now the thing is, this is $90,000 total fixed costs at 15,000 units. What will be my fixed costs at 18,000 units? Well, what do I know about fixed costs? Fixed costs stay the same. They stay the same regardless of the level of activity, as long as we are within the relevant range, which is something we talked about in an earlier chapter. And we're not told that we are outside the relevant range, so we can assume that we are still within the relevant range. So what that means is that our total fixed costs remain the same, $90,000. Now I can calculate net operating income, or income from operations, of $54,000. Now the other question is, what happens to fixed costs per unit as we go from 15,000 to 18,000 units? So in that case, what I would do is I'd take my total fixed costs divided by my 18,000 units, which is going to be lower than $6. And so that's what I was saying earlier, that fixed costs per unit decrease as we make more units, as activity increases. Fixed costs per unit go down because, look, the denominator increased, which means the output goes down. Let's look at this final question, which is our Perkins Company provides the following data for its master budget. We have our sales price at $11, Our materials, labor, variable overhead, depreciation, supervision, this is fixed, this is fixed. Selling expense is variable, this is variable, variable overhead. Direct labor we know is variable. Direct materials we also know is variable. Selling is a variable cost, administrative is fixed at $9,000 per month. Prepare flexible budgets for sales at 20,000, 22, and 24. So I'm going to cross this out and just say, I want you to stop the lecture video. And I want you to do what we did earlier, right over here, with this budgeting part, this part, where I want you to do the budget based for this one, based upon 20,000 and 22,000. And tell me what sales will be, direct materials, direct labor, variable operating, variable selling, variable overhead at 20,000 and 22,000 based upon these numbers. Okay? I'm going to stop the lecture video. I want you to stop the lecture video and I want you to work on this problem and then come back and I'll review the answer with you. Okay? Hello and welcome back. And so this is what I asked you to do, to do a 20,000 and 22,000. I crossed out the 24 because if you can do it at the 20,000 and 22,000, you can do it at the 24,000. So we have our sales of $220,000. How do we get that? We take our sales price of $11 times the 20,000 gives me $220. Right over here, I can take my sales price of $11 times the 22,000, and that gives me $242. My materials cost is $3 a unit times the 20,000 gives me $60,000. 3 times the 22 gives me 66. Labor, same thing. 425 times the 20,000. 425 times the 22,000 right over here. Same thing with variable overhead, variable selling. The way I get to contribution margin is I take my sales minus my variable expenses, and then that gives me my contribution margin, 60,000, and then 66,000. Now the one that might have been a little bit harder than what we did up here is, see, it says factory depreciation, $12,000 per month, supervision, $11,000 per month, administrative costs of $9,000 per month. These are fixed costs, and so you have to understand fixed cost behavior to tell me what these costs will be at each level of activity. Well, if you understand their fixed cost behavior, you know that they will be the same in total at 20,000 as they will be at 22,000. So I have my 20,000, it's still 12,000 right up here. My 11,000 at 20,000 units remains the same. 9,000 at 20,000 units. And then those numbers are also the same at 22,000 units. And then we can take our contribution margin minus our total fixed costs, contribution margin minus our total fixed costs, and then that gives us our income from operations at 20,000 and at 22,000. Okay. All right, this is the end of this lecture video. The next lecture video, or series of lecture videos, will cover standard costs. Thanks.